Welcome to this video, beloved. We are going to immediately resume our series called The Eras of the Nations. And we are going to look at the, the sequel of not only this series, but about this image, this terrifying image as it was described. So this is the image in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and let's look at what it means, because of course that is all explained. So what did Nebuchadnezzar see in his dream? He saw that a stone was hewn off, not by hands, very important, not by hands. That stone collided with the statue on the feet of iron and clay. So it collided on that spot, on the feet of iron and clay. And immediately the iron, the clay, the copper, the silver, and the gold were pulverized. And notice the reverse order. Let's see. So it was gold, silver, copper, iron, clay, and now it is iron, clay, copper, silver, and gold. There is a reason why it is mentioned in reverse order, even while everything happened immediately. Okay, so what happened then? They became like chaff from the threshing floors in the summer, and the wind lifted them up, and no trace of them was found again. And the stone that collided with the image became a great mountain range and filled the whole earth. You can read about that in Daniel 2, 31, 35. So this is more like a summary, obviously. Okay, we continue, because the story is not finished. So this is about global kingdoms and global political kingdoms, which immediately follow each other. Very important. I said that already in the previous video. There are no gaps in the timeline. That is my view. That's how I share it. We still live in one of those kingdoms, so to speak. And of course, we're going to talk about that. So, this again is about political kingdoms. Keep that in mind. Daniel was approximately 25 years old when he helped or served Nebuchadnezzar by telling him what he dreamt, of course, given to him by God, and interpreting the dream for him as well. So, the head of gold, what is that? What does it represent? That represents Nebuchadnezzar. That's what Daniel said. It's you, O king. And he was also called King of Kings. That means that he was indeed the king to which everything was subjected. So that is to whom everything on earth by that time was subjected. Even if he didn't know other continents, doesn't matter. And Nebuchadnezzar is the head of gold, but of course on behalf of the Babylonian Empire, obviously. Okay, the chest and the arms of silver, that represents the Medo-Persian Empire, and that came immediately after the Babylonian Empire. They conquered them. Okay, so with a silent conquer. Let me put it like that. It was not a war. Okay, the third one, the abdomen and thighs of copper. That is the Greco-Macedonian Empire under the leadership of Alexander the Great. By the way, the Medo-Persian Empire was under the leadership in the beginning of Cyrus the Great. And he had a lower king that was stationed in Babylon, but he was the king of the whole empire. So this was, of course, Alexander the Great, and he died very young, very young. I think he was maybe 28 years old, and that kingdom was parted in four, and between his most important generals. Okay, that's also another story, but that kingdom and the one of the kingdoms of the most important general who already conquered other kingdoms as well, from the Seleucid Empire. He was conquered by the Roman Empire, of course, later on, some centuries later on, and those are the legs of iron that they represent the Roman Empire, and they took over, so to speak, immediately after the Seleucid Empire, what also was part of the Greco-Macedonian Empire. And the Roman Empire, and this is important, please bear in mind, the Roman Empire is inclusive of the Ottoman Empire, which is an Islamic empire, and including the Roman Church via the Vatican. It's also part of the Roman Empire. Because why do I use this? Why do I mention this even? Because this, in the capacity, how do I say it? In this context of political kingdoms, the Roman Church via the Vatican is very relevant, because they had still have huge political influence. That's why I mentioned them, and they came into existence even before the Ottoman Empire, before there was any Islam. So, how about the feet, which are partly of iron and partly of clay? So, I'm going to share my view, but I'm going to do that later. So first, I want to, so you can read about it in Daniel 2, verse 36 to 45. There is a question you might ask. I was asking that question already long ago, and this is the question. How can the entire statue be pulverized when only the feet are hit by the stone? Because that is what the king saw, what Nebuchadnezzar saw. The stone hit and collided with the feet, only the feet. But as a result of that, immediately the whole statue, in reverse order, but the whole statue was pulverized. How is that possible that the entire image is pulverized? This is a moment for you to pause this video and think for yourself first. It always helps. And also, maybe if you are not alone watching this, then you can discuss it amongst each other before I continue. But I'm going to continue now. It's up to you, of course, what you do with it. So, what is happening here with this image? There is a red line, a thread with D at the end, and that is Babylon. Babylon is the red line of the whole image. Babylon is throughout the whole image, not only the golden hat or the hat of gold. No, that starts like that in this specific this particular image, but everything breathes Babylon. And I'm going to explain that, of course. But also, Babylon is the place where it all began. And this word began is not referring to the head of gold now, but it's referring to the beginning of this eon, this world era in which we still live. It's already 4,340 years old, this era. And it's going to end very, very soon. So, what then began in Babylon? What are the characteristics? There are three of them. Three characteristics: rebellion, worship, and confusion. Rebellion, because man wanted to make a name for himself through the Tower of Babel or Babel. The second one is worship, of course, of false gods, so worship of idols or idolatry. And the second one is confusion, because Babylon means confusion. Babel or Babel is the Hebrew term and Babylon is the Greek term, same place. So confusion, and as a result, scattering. That's what happened. So these characteristics return by other means in the eras of the nations, which also began with Babylon being the golden head. So this is important to keep in mind also. All right, let's continue. This is important also because now I just want to make a little sidestep and explain that the beginning of this current eon, that was of course more or less with Babylon, the Tower of Babel. The beginning of this current eon, it characterized by the confusion, the language confusion, as a result of which groups were created that spoke the same language. And what happened then? They didn't trust each other anymore because they thought maybe they are talking about us and conquering us, for instance. So there was a growing distrust among the groups that spoke the same language. So what happened then? Of course, as a logical result, they went on the one continent. Still, the earth was still one continent. They went to look for a place in a climate where they felt at home, obviously. And after that, the biggest earthquake came. So let me just go one step back. So because of the language confusion, there became there became groups, and those groups became nations. So they went apart and they moved to various places on earth. And then after that, this is all God's hand, obviously. The biggest earthquake so far happened. And until now, that was the biggest earthquake. Because as a result of that earthquake, the continent called Earth tore apart into more continents and islands. And you know that already: Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, the Americas, that's all continents, and of course islands. And initially, the continents, they drifted apart at great speed. So there is how also the oceans as we know it today came into being. Of course, they were first at all in one waters, seas if you want. But then, of course, because of the breaking up of the continent at great speed in the beginning, then the Atlantic Ocean came into existence, etc., etc. The Pacific and the Indian Ocean, and other seas in between. So as time progressed, of course, the drifting apart became slower and slower, but is still happening today. Did you know that? Still happening today. Because science already knows, and already, you can read about it, you can read in magazines, that for instance, the Atlantic Ocean is getting bigger every year with 5 to 6 centimeters. So this is very small, obviously, very small. However, it's still happening, the drifting away. That's what I wanted to point out. So this was the characteristic of the beginning of this current eon, and how will the end be of this current eon, knowing God and knowing how structured God is, the end of the current eon will be the other way around. So everything will converge again into one big continent. So this is my view on the end time. Probably again one world language. Remember, in the beginning the languages were diverse. They became diverse and they spread as a result in the end times, and that is very, very soon. There will, I think, be one world language again possible through technology this time, through quantum technology. So the second point is that there will be in the future at least 3 huge big earthquakes. I have to mention it double because these are huge ones. In Revelation 11:13, we read that a tenth part of the city, which is Jerusalem, falls, and 7,000 names die. And names means man of renown, well-known names. 7,000. Thus, it looks like by that time that this earthquake happens, that there will be a huge, I think, conference or seminar in Jerusalem with a lot of famous names. That's what I think. Because this earthquake, this first one, is at the end of the ministry of the 2 witnesses. Okay, so this is the first earthquake. The second one, described in Revelation 6:14, is such severity. Is that the word? Severity? That every mountain and every island is moved from their place. So I imagine that the islands will be drifting on the seas. So their core, their how do you say that? Their tectonic plates, it will be cut off, so to speak. So they will have no anchor anymore, these islands. So they will drift at sea as a result of this earthquake. But that's not the biggest yet. The biggest has to come, and that is described in Revelation 16, verse 18 to 20. That is the biggest ever, even bigger than the one in the beginning of this eon, because it's scripture says this is going to be the biggest ever since humanity came onto the earth. And that one is already an interesting expression on its own. But I'm not going into that now. Okay, so this is going to be the biggest ever. And I love what is the word? The euphemism that scripture, or the euphemisms that scripture often use. And this one is the cities of the nations fall. I mean, come on. The cities of the nations, all nations except Israel, fall. Can you imagine? Every city that you can think of will be utterly destroyed, equaled to the ground, so to speak. Every city. Can you imagine? That's going to happen. And that is more or less how this eon will end. It will end with a boom for sure. But not only that, all the islands and mountains are no longer found. Can you even think about these things? I mean, if a mountain, let's look at Mount Everest. If Mount Everest can no longer be found, how severe needs such an earthquake? How severe does it need to be? I think my English is very poor today. Anyway, how severe does such an earthquake need to be? I cannot describe it. If a heavy earthquake is now 10 on the scale of Richter, I think this is going to be at least 100. No, I think higher. It's going to be, it's undescribable. That's what I think. So, the islands are not found anymore. The mountains are not found anymore. So where at the second earthquake in Revelation, the islands were floating because they were moved from their place, now they are totally destroyed. Or they drifted towards the one continent that Earth will become again. That is also a huge, and I think that's even a bigger possibility. So, and the last one, all continents will drift back to each other, so they will be again one total continent in the fourth eon, just like in the second eon. The fourth eon is the eon of the millennial kingdom on earth, and the second eon was from Adam to Noah, to the flood of Noah. Okay, so this is, wow, it's still a little bit long, but okay. Thank you for watching, and we're going to, of course, continue in the next video. Bye-bye.